From a boating accident gone wrong to allegations of fraud, embezzlement, even murder, the Murdaugh family is no stranger to controversy. But the deeper you dig into the family's history, the more shocking discoveries you uncover. The immense power that the Murdaugh family wielded around Hampton, South Carolina stretched back to Randolph Murdaugh, who practiced law in the 1920s and 30s. After his tragic death following an accidental collision with the C&W freight train in 1940, the surviving Murdaughs gradually shifted the focus of their law firm to cases against the railroad companies, to great success. For over 50 years, the family of attorneys established themselves as the go-to place in the country to sue railroads because of the amount of money they won in lawsuits, making a fortune themselves in the process. One highly effective strategy the firm used was to get heavily involved in the community in order to influence potential jurists, which was a major factor that led to such high financial awards. Eventually, the Murdaugh family law firm became so wealthy and powerful in the region that locals became afraid to criticize them. An anonymous Hampton area resident told the State, "They are known for suing people. That would be the last place you would want to find yourself, in court with those folks suing you. The Murdaughs know everyone. They are well liked and they make it a point to stop and talk to people, just like politicians." In 2021, the Murdaugh family was thrust into the national spotlight when Paul and his mother Maggie were shot to death. While the 22-year-old was brutally slain with 2 shotgun rounds, Maggie perished from wounds caused by a separate firearm, a rifle. The grisly murders took place at their own property, and it was the patriarch of the family, Alec, who found their bodies on the estate and called the authorities. At first, Alec was not considered a suspect, but that changed dramatically a year later when he was charged with the killings and brought to trial. Although the former lawyer pleaded not guilty to the heinous crimes, prosecutors argued that his motive was to direct attention away from a series of embezzlement cases against him that were rapidly coming to light, on top of the money spent on his opioid addiction. In 2023, further evidence was revealed in court that just a month before the murders, Paul and his mother discovered the extent of Alec's drug problems. As reported by the New York Times, a text the son sent to the father said, "When you get here, we have to talk. Mom found several bags of pills in your computer bag." Despite the evidence and contradictions in his account of the night, Alec insists he did not commit the murders. In his testimony, he stressed, "I did not shoot my wife or my son anytime, ever."
I would never intentionally do anything to hurt either one of them.
In 2018, a death occurred on Murdaugh property at their home in Moselle, but it gained significantly less publicity than the later fatalities associated with the family, or at least that was the case initially. At the time, the Murdaugh story was that Gloria Satterfield, the housekeeper who had worked for the family for 24 years, accidentally fell down some steps, leading to a fatal injury she did not recover from. The official account of Gloria's fate remained unquestioned for a year until her sons figured out that Alec Murdaugh had secured a wrongful death settlement worth around $500,000, but kept it all for himself, according to The New Yorker. After this grim realization, the Satterfield brothers' attorney, Eric Bland, made an even worse discovery. Murdaugh had also robbed them of the $3.8 million payout from a liability insurance policy. Once the company, Nautilus Insurance, was informed of the malevolent activity, they filed a lawsuit against Alec. But that was only the beginning, for the floodgates had been opened to an extensive history of criminal actions committed by the prominent lawyer. In 2022, after the many dark revelations about the Murdaughs came to light, Gloria's body was exhumed to determine if there was any foul play involved in her death. As of March 2023, the authorities have not released their findings. In 2019, the lives of Paul Murdaugh and his close friends were irreversibly changed. It happened one tragic night when the group took a boat down the river to the nearby Pawkey Island and back. Among the 6 passengers on the Murdaugh vessel were Paul's girlfriend, Morgan Dowdy, his best friend, Anthony Cook, and the latter's girlfriend, Mallory Beach. The group not only started drinking beforehand, but continued to do so throughout the trip, even making a stop at a waterfront bar as well. Even though Paul was the most intoxicated of them all, he refused to let anyone else drive his boat. It was later found that his blood alcohol level was over 3 times the limit. The situation then deteriorated further as the youngest Murdaugh focused more on screaming at Morgan in a heated argument than steering the vessel. With no one at the wheel, the boat collided with Archer's Creek Bridge at an extremely dangerous speed, causing Mallory to be thrown overboard and later die in the water. When first responders arrived, they desperately searched for Mallory, but it would take over a week until she was found. That terrible night, as Anthony anxiously awaited, he was absolutely furious with Paul. Deputy Sheriff Stephen Domino told 48 Hours,
"He actually tried to rush through me to get to Paul because I guess he saw him smiling."
Paul was eventually charged with 3 felony counts for his actions, but died before the trial could begin. On top of being on trial for the murders of his son and wife, Alec has also faced a whirlwind of charges regarding rampant embezzlement over several years. In 2021, his severe downfall began once he was forced to leave his own family's law firm because of missing funds he was linked to that amounted to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Alec was then later disbarred as accounts of his alleged criminality rapidly increased to around 90 charges by the following year, as reported by the Associated Press. According to prosecutors, the disgraced attorney may have stolen at least $8.5 million in total. The theft of such a large sum of money is not even nearly as disturbing as the ways Alec potentially seized the cash and who he took it from. The victims were often clients who already struggled financially before experiencing a tragic injury or death in the family, and then he used various methods to steal the funds won in court settlements from them. In 2021, only 3 months after Paul and Maggie Murdaugh were brutally slain, Alec made an outrageous attempt to resolve his terrible situation on his own terms, but failed miserably. Based on the belief that his one surviving son, Buster, would not receive a payout from his $10 million life insurance policy if he took his own life, Alec devised a plot for a former associate to do it for him instead, as reported by the BBC. In an attempt to make it appear as if Alec was attacked, he hired Curtis Edward Smith to shoot him with a gun while Alec pretended to change a tire on the side of the road. However, the planned attack resulted in only a minor head wound for Alec, and shortly thereafter the scheme unraveled. Within a month, both men were indicted for conspiracy.
I didn't shoot him.
Are you innocent of everything?
I'm innocent. If I'd have shot him, he'd have been dead. He's alive.
Alec Murdaugh's flawed attempt to have an associate kill him was not only unsuccessful, but also set off another avalanche of legal trouble for the disbarred lawyer. After both he and his accomplice, Curtis Edward Smith, were indicted, it was revealed that the two allegedly had a long history of working together in drug-related crimes. Stretching all the way back to 2013, there is evidence that Alec and Smith likely engaged in the drug trafficking of oxycodone in more than one county of South Carolina. Throughout the period in question, Alec wrote hundreds of sketchy checks to Smith, which added up to the insane amount of $2.4 million per the Daily Beast. The indictment went into further detail to explain the illegal activity and said, Murdaugh drew the checks on accounts under his control at multiple banks and made the checks payable to various versions of Smith's name, as well as to close associates of Smith. In some instances, Smith forged the endorsement of his close associates without their knowledge or consent, then endorsed the checks himself. Before the horrible death of Mallory Beach due to Paul Murdaugh's actions, the worst aspect known to the public about him was his cruel treatment of his girlfriend, Morgan Dowdy. In the docuseries Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal, Morgan went into gruesome detail about Paul's abusive behavior. Murdaugh was not only a cruel partner with words, but he even got physically violent with her sometimes as well, especially after drinking heavily. Unsurprisingly, this very dark side of him showed itself right before the devastating boat crash when he slapped and spit on Morgan during a fight. Nor was that the first time Paul had abused Morgan. There were previous moments that were glaring red flags for her to leave him, with one of the most extreme instances occurring after the family celebrated Buster Murdaugh's graduation. When recalling the frightening experience, she cried and said, "We were staying at a hotel. He had been so intoxicated. We finally got into bed and for some reason Paul kept kicking me. I yelled at him and then he got on top of me and I just remember him screaming, 'I told you to shut up.' He was holding down my throat." In the first episode of the Netflix docuseries Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal, Morgan Dowdy provided a shocking revelation about the Murdaugh parents and said,
"They were okay with us drinking. They always get us alcohol."
She went into further detail to describe how Alec Murdaugh not only gave out hard liquor to Paul and his friends from his office at the law firm, but there was also plenty of it stocked up and available in their home as well. This allegedly all began as early as their freshman year in high school for the teens. Maggie Murdaugh also did not seem to care about the excessive drinking when Morgan tried to talk to her out of concern for Paul. On the other hand, Morgan's father Bill strongly disapproved of that sort of behavior, but was not aware of how bad it had gotten at the time. Years later, he came to the chilling conclusion that Paul must have lived through a terrible experience and said, "You drink like that to escape something." Those who knew Paul Murdaugh most intimately were well aware that he had a dark side, which became far more apparent when he drank heavily. In fact, the youngest Murdaugh behaved so differently and frighteningly strange at times that his best mates even came up with the name Timmy for his intoxicated alter ego. In their testimony, one member in his circle of friends gave a brief glimpse of how they all reacted around Paul when he was too inebriated and said, according to the New Yorker, "When they can tell he's drunk, somebody will say, 'All right, here comes Timmy, we got to go.'" Clearly, no one wanted to be around Paul when he was in that state of mind, which makes the fatal boat crash in 2019 even more disturbing since there was no safe way to escape from him before it became too late. If you or someone you know is dealing with domestic abuse, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also find more information, resources, and support at their website.